Hi, welcome back to Monitor Training. My name is Christy Smith from AIS Inc. And in our last several videos, we've talked about how to sign into Monitor, how to create a trip, and now we're going to take a look at individual event annotations. So, starting from the trip we created in the last video, I'd like to call your attention to the different lanes, which are the data categories you see here on the left. Obviously, we start with a trip, and we make this mark so that we have our start and end point recorded, as well as information about trip departure, port of departure, and any relevant comments we need to share with either regulators, industry, or the vendor. So for this example, you can see we've got quite a few phishing events, and now that you're starting to learn what video tracks look like, you can see here that the different times in different colors likely indicate we have some phishing activity. So let's take our time now to move through each of the lanes and enter information as we need to. So Monitor is made up of custom JSON configuration files. Each file contains the different questions and drop-down lists for each lane. For example, data recorded in setting for gear setting information would include things such as haul number, gear type, bait type, and review status. These questions are going to be different from any annotation that would pop up if we were entering catch information. So the framework behind the scenes that's working in Monitor is customizable and is built based on program needs. So for this example, if we were looking at a setting event, each of these drop-down fields is housed in a behind-the-scenes file and is used for our review team. Things like the bait type and review are obviously going to have different types of categories for the drop-down fields. So each lane speaks specifically to the type of phishing event we're recording. So a setting event for gear setting is going to be different from a catch retrieval, a catch event. Likewise, for any issues on deck, if we noticed a short camera gap or a concern with a sensor missing a section or anything in that nature, we'd use our issues column. There's also some fields here for compliance tracking to make sure that it's reported appropriately and eventually resolved. You can see as I move through the lanes with my arrow on the keyboard, that lane highlights a little bit lighter color gray. And my playhead is used for making these entries. So how I like to annotate trips is once I've created my start and end point for the trip, I'd like to mark out my gear setting and recovery events. Longline events, which is this vessel, are going to appear as the buoy going over and coming back in with all the gear in between. This is going to be different from a trawling vessel or a purse seine vessel, which relies on noting when the gear and the net is deployed off the vessel, and generally when the winches engage or the hauling begins to bring the net back in. So be sure to know the definitions of the haul start and stop time for your program. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'll delete these, which is simply the backspace. And I'd like to start us by looking for setting events. Along the way, if we notice issues with any missing video, we'll be sure to add them to our issues column. For now, let's zoom in on our timeline bar. Let's take a look at the first day's events and begin our set marking. You're going to notice I'm going to move through our camera display We've toured how to change these in video 2, so if you need to review, please watch video 2 again. So we're looking for different clues for the start of fishing. And in my opinion, the best camera is going to be camera 3 on this vessel. And we're going to be looking for folks on deck and some activity where gear setting occurs back here. You can see I've got my play bar set to several hours worth of video for scrolling, and I found some activity back on the back deck. Now I'll zoom in on my timeline to about 10-minute increments. You can see here how the time bar on the left adds or subtracts time based on how far you zoom in. So now with a greater degree of control, we can frame through this activity and look for when they set that first buoy in the water, noting the start of the event. I can see from here the main line is still tied, so let's play and look for that start of fishing. Okay, and there it is. Did we see it? I've got a buoy in the water, and we'll slow our timeline down. Our playback speed now at 2 times speed, and I want to catch that moment it goes in. Right there. All right, so we see setting is highlighted. Our playhead's at the right time and location. All I need to do is enter on the keyboard, and now I've dropped my setting event. If I wanted to begin work in here, I can include the hull number and any information I'm interested in including. So now my job as a reviewer is to zoom out a bit on the timeline here. We know that setting takes a few hours, and we're going to leave that event highlighted in white. And now our job is to find this endpoint when the last buoy goes in. This is how mainline long line works, a large buoy on each end with some sub buoys as the floats come up with the gear. So you'll notice people on deck, some activity. We're putting together different clues that we can visualize. Another, if we zoom in on their location, is typically they'll set in a nice straight line. You can see where we started is this green dot, and you can see how straight they were setting gear out. So it makes sense before they complete this turn that they'll finish setting gear. We're always putting our clues together of what we're observing to make us efficient reviewers. Let's increase the playback speed a bit. This red timeline bar here will help us do that. Okay, who saw it? We've got the buoys going in. I'm going to use the playhead to just come back a few seconds. Okay, we'll use this set event end in the bottom right. And now Monitor has created a duration event, the start time we indicated, the end time we indicated, which now captures those GPS locations throughout that event, as well as all images are now considered part of the set. Our next task, now that we've identified the gear setting information, is to find when the vessel and crew hauls back, and for this fishery we call that a gear recovery. So we'll use our timeline bar arrow over to recovery, and we're going to look for clues in the vessel's track. We saw them finish this nice straight setting line, and we'll zoom out a bit and pull through the time bar, looking for them to retrieve that gear. We know this gear is going to float, and it's going to take it a little bit away from where it was initially placed. So some clues we would look for would be folks on deck, maybe the lights turning back on for some of these darker spots. And we're going to wait to see them haul their gear back in. Looks like some activity here, so I'm going to zoom out on the timeline, zoom in on the chart. And to me, this track looks like they were in search of that first buoy for retrieving gear. So I'm going to turn the playback speed up a little bit, and I'm going to look through to see if my suspicions are correct. Looks like we just saw a short camera gap for camera 5. Come back in and make that notation. So in issues, I would hit enter, camera 5, video gap. And we'll drop down the playback speed and set that event end for our video gap. Drop the set event end down here. We've captured that 56-second event. So efficient video review relies on some level of multitasking. We're adding information about the fishing activity, system health, and moving through the video to capture a lot of different events simultaneously. Let's get back to the task at hand. We're looking for gear recovery. Oh, we've got somebody coming out on deck. That's a pretty good sign usually. But of course, these folks live on the vessel while they're under transit and out fishing, so it's totally routine to see people on deck when they're not fishing as well. Right now, I'm going to zoom in on our timeline a little bit, see if I can help us find this retrieval a little bit faster. So based on this vessel's layout, I would be looking at camera 1. Here we go, for that buoy to come on board. Okay. So for longline gear, we know it starts and ends with the large radio flyer buoys. And for gear recovery marking, we want to make a note when we see that come on board. So I have recovery highlighted. The playhead is at the right location, so I'll hit enter. This is going to drop our recovery haul in here, and we will use our timeline to zoom out a bit, and we'll try to capture the full gear recovery in this annotation, and we'll come back and add our species ID information. So as you work through these types of trips, you'll start to see some patterns emerge on how they set and haul back gear. This boat tended to haul back in the morning and set at night. You may recognize this position change that happened pretty abruptly. That's a great visual signal that we're coming to the end of the fishing activity, right? Because they're going to increase speed and change direction once they have gear on board, but probably not during gear retrieval. So we're looking for the large orange buoy. This smaller one here is typical for interline buoys, but we're looking for the large flyer buoy to mark the end one. Okay, so right now I've got the time noted, and I want to come back up here to grab this event. So I'll just make a mark, highlight that event up top, pull down to the mark I've just created, and set end. Now I'll come back and remove that extra note. This is a kind of a workaround if you've been working and looking in other lanes and your event is no longer highlighted. You'll need to highlight it to come back and grab the endpoint. Okay, so from our records now, we have our trip. We have the camera gap we saw in camera 5. We have one set marked, one gear recovery marked, and this process would repeat throughout the whole trip to mark all sets and recoveries. Once you've created your trip framework by recording all setting and recovery events based on the fishery you're working in, you'll either apply a subsampling rate, perhaps 20% of all fishing activity will be reviewed in detail, or perhaps this is a 100% review and you'll be looking at all fishing data. So let's assume that this is a haul that will be monitored. We come back and begin our recovery review. If you are watching for gear interaction during a setting event, you would obviously need to watch all setting event activity to achieve that. Each program is going to have different needs, and some are looking for seabird interactions or other type of gear interactions during setting, while others focus mostly on fishing activity and haul back information. Okay, so I've navigated back to the start of the gear recovery. We can see from the duration event details here, we have a 3-hour and 4-minute event spanning this time span. And we can use the playback function here now to start to move through those 3 hours of gear recovery, notating the catch items we observe along the way. I like to find a comfortable speed for review for these first couple 100 feet of line while they're bringing in the gear. Some programs request a hook count, and you'd obviously need to slow down to count individual hooks if that was the case. So there's several different views here that are going to show us the catch area. My focus is going to be on camera 1 and camera 5, and we toggle between views using the camera number box or the layout box in the menu. That information was covered in previous videos, so please refer to that if you're having trouble. You can see the way this longline gear works is that each stanchion or hook is snapped off by the guy in the red shirt. And if there's catch item online, it'll get passed off and brought in. Otherwise, it's set to be rebaited and clipped back on the hook when the gear is reset. All right, we had a swordfish come up. We'll hit enter with the catch lane highlighted. In the species field, we'll scroll down to the species ID we want to enter. In this event, I would also add a count of 1. And now we can use this grid as a reference point to create a visual estimate, which can be transformed into a weight estimate. In this example, I'll just leave it as a species ID. And now if this fish is returned to sea, we would use the discard function here, this checkbox. But if it's retained, we'll leave it as is. So this process will continue for every catch item that comes up. Here, we got something coming up now. And another swordfish. All right, Shift Enter on the keyboard will create a duplicate entry, which I just used. This can help save time for efficient review if you have a lot of the same species coming up. Some of our reviewers will come in and annotate all catch items and then come back through and create all the measurement data. That could be another way to save time by grouping activities and staying in the move for each type of event entry or measurement. Here's another catch item coming up. I've got another sword, so I'll do Shift Enter, duplicates that event, which is great. So we're well on our way to annotating this first haul. You can see we have our 3 catch events in blue, but I want to call out a few things that are worth noting. First, you can see each individual event has this white dashed line, and this implies that there's some important information that's not yet been filled out for that entry. So for this program, we would like to have everyone complete the length edge measurement through the visual estimate and convert that to a weight from the weight relationship with length. So to help facilitate review, those fields will be highlighted and help us to recognize that there's some information still required there. And this is helpful when we're looking at large amount of data and doing some quality checks of our own information. You can see that's also true for our recovery event because there's an important field here required about the review status. So if I write that its start and end is complete right now, you can see that lane transforms to a solid white line as opposed to the dashed line we notice for our catch event. So this process will continue. Go in and add all your catch information and then record your measurement estimates or do your measurements as you go. And we move through the trip in that fashion. If there was a species encountered that was considered protected in the region, you'd have the use of this lane. We see some seabirds here, marine mammals, turtles, some different sharks. All of that is contained under the protected lane. We include different notes here about the condition, if it was released, and information about how many and what you saw is important for the comments. In our next video, we'll take a look at summarizing data and generating reports in Monitor after data has been entered into the individual trip. Please join us for that video if you're interested.